Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Jace here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 7 of Deku the Shield Hero. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So, we begin. The next day felt more like your typical school day for Izuku and Raphtalia. While UA was designed to train the next generation of heroes and the people who supported them, such as engineers for their tech. The school also handled their full high school education. That included things like English, math, science, and art. Of course, classes were far more exciting when heroes were teaching them. How could anyone find thermal conduction boring when it was Power Loader teaching the class? Or discussing the tale of Genji with Cementoss? For Izuku, he hung on to every word that was spoken as he eagerly took notes, though there were some classes he was looking forward to more than others. One of those classes was Modern Art, taught by none other than Miss Namuri Kayama, aka the pro hero Midnight. After the hero had sauntered into the classroom, dressed in her hero uniform, she had announced for the first lesson that they would be having a little fun. I want to see what my new darling students are capable of. Draw whatever you desire with no restrictions, as long as it's something that speaks to your soul, your passion. I want to see it. Don't worry if it's not perfect or even finished. You won't be penalized, but all of you will be presenting your works to the class before the bell rings. A few students grimaced at that last part, with one or two complaining until, with a loud crack of her whip, Midnight silenced them. From there, the only noises that could be heard were the scratching of pencils against paper, furious erasures, Kachan's foul language spoken under his breath, and Minetta's perverted giggling as they worked. Izuku, however, took a bit longer to get started as he tried to figure out what he wanted to draw, what spoke to him the most. Well, All Might, of course. Who better symbolized what it meant to be a hero? Perhaps making a drawing of that old video, the one he still watched online? He also toyed with the idea of drawing the first hero in action he had ever seen, but seeing as it was Midnight, that this was her class, and that they would be presenting their work, his classmates might get the wrong impression. When his pencil finally touched the paper, he paused for a moment as he thinks back to the other 3 weapon users he had met yesterday. Something about their words still ate away at him a little. That they considered him the weakest, not believing that he could ever go as far as them, writing him off without even giving Izuku a chance to show what he was capable of, all because he had the shield weapon. But as soon as Izuku began to sketch out the outline of All Might, back hunched as he was bringing several injured people out of a flaming wreck, the freckled-faced teen shook away those thoughts. Raphtalia was right. There was more to being a hero than their quirk, more than just pure power. So, what if they could destroy more robots to their own? To him, saving and protecting people was the way to go. So with that, Izuku continued along with the rest of the class until the time was called. Once everyone's pencils were put down, they were each called up one at a time to display their work. Some of them were rather simple, like trees in a field, or such is the case of a frog-like girl, Asui, lily pads. Others took Izuku by surprise, like how the large muscular teen Sato drew a 5-layered cake with strawberries, or how Uraraka drew planet-sized mochi in space. Then it came Bakugo's. It's an explosion! Everyone just blinked at the image at the ashen-haired hero Hopeful held up, staring at the mix of jagged and wavy lines that seemed to consume his sheet of paper. Silently, Izuku chuckled at his childhood friend, while the rest of his class just sort of sat there, as they continued to process both the image and the explanation. Once the class was over, everyone was headed down to the lunchroom where Pro Hero Lunch Rush served up a very extensive and tasty menu. Though, before they left, Izuku and Raphtalia lingered behind to have a few words with Midnight alone. It was nothing major, with Midnight asking the two how they had been since they had last seen each other, and how they were enjoying UA. Once they were done answering positively, she grinned. Well, that's good to hear, and I'd simply love to see the accessories that you make Midoriya. Now, you two lovebirds better hurry up and get to the lunchroom. You wouldn't want to start your first hero class on an empty stomach. Her smile grew as the 2 teens began blushing. Lovebirds? It's nothing like that. After that rather embarrassing conversation was over, the two walked in silence towards the lunchroom. with their still red faces staring downward. Then, finally, it was time. Now, with the entirety of Class 1A back in the classroom, the doors quickly opened just mere seconds after the bell rang.
I am here, coming through the door like a hero!
With that declaration, All Might himself burst into the room. The entire class marveled at the man as he strode across the front of the room. Some gushed in amazement that they were to be taught by the living legend himself. Others, like Midoriya, had sparkles in their eyes as they realized he wasn't wearing his current favorite hero outfit, but rather his older Silver Age costume. To see it on him with their own eyes was certainly a treat.
Welcome, class, to the most important class here at UA. Think of it as Heroing 101. Here you will be learning the basics of being a pro and what it means to fight in the name of good. Let's get into it, because today's lessons will pull no punches.
With his ever-present smile, All Might pulled out a card from somewhere that had the word battle on it in bold red letters. Excitement rang throughout the class, especially with Bakugo, who looked like every holiday had been renamed after him. Then, the panels within the walls began to eject, revealing that they had large silver briefcases on them with large numbers.
But one of the keys to being a hero is looking good. These costumes were based on your quirk registration forms as well as your own personal requests. Get yourself suited up and meet at Training Ground Beta.
This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN allows you to change your IP address, making it harder to track and securing your privacy. In addition to providing safe passage through the web, you can also expand the reach of your favorite streaming services, like Disney+. If you are from the United States, you won't be able to watch any of the MCU or Sony Spider-Man movies. But by switching your location to Japan, you can access them whenever you want. Check out the link in the description to get 3 extra months when you purchase the 12-month subscription plan that costs $99.99 a year. This deal is for a limited time. And thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. Izuku walked out of a long metallic hallway with the rest of his class, his green cloak billowing in the wind as he entered Training Ground Beta. Originally, Izuku wanted something knightly with a helmet that was shaped like All Might's. But after some careful and practical rethinking, he realized that it would be unnecessary as his shield already gave him amazing protection. That, and the fact that such armor would be both loud as well and difficult to move around in. So, instead, he went with a more simple look. Thick brown leather that had been stitched into the sides of his green pants, white fur lining around them. Over his green long-sleeved shirt was a brown chest guard, as well as a metal plate on top of that. Brown boots and gloves lined with more white fur protected his arms and legs. Finally, there were a few pouches on his belt which he had already filled with homemade healing potions. When he had compared himself to people like Ida, who had gone with something like a robotic knight, or Aoyama, whose costume was night-themed, Izuku looked more like the king of barbarians. Wow, Izuku, you look so cool! Izuku's heart began beating 100 miles an hour as he looked Raphtalia in her now hero costume. She wore a red hide breastplate with puffy shoulders and a single shoulder guard, a white skirt, laced-up boots that went all the way to her kneecaps, and a pair of gloves. On her belt was a sword that brought together the image of a traveling adventurer. You too. You look, just wow. Raphtalia blushed as she looked away, a hand coming up to her mouth to hide the smile forming on her lips. While the rest of their class saw this with a mix of awe at best or indifference at worst, 3 students were the exception. Would those 2 quit their shitty flirting already? I swear, if I get the chance, I'm going to destroy that damn Deku once and for all! While I don't agree with your choice of language, I must say that such actions are totally inappropriate. We are here at this fine institution to become a shining example of heroics and valor. Such actions are totally unbecoming of a hero in training. Why is he the one picking up the chicks? I want a hot babe to gush after how amazing I look. You look like a grape stain in a diaper, so shut your trap before I murder you! Before anyone else could say anything more, All Might walked out to address the assembled group of students.
They say that clothes make the pros. And behold, you are the living proof. Take this to heart. Heroes in training. You're getting me all revved up. You all look so cool. Now, shall we get started, you newbies?
Ida then raised his hand.
Sir, this looks like the fake city from the entrance exam. Does this mean we're going to be doing urban combat? Not quite, young Ida. I'm going to be moving you 2 steps ahead.
With that, All Might began to explain to the group how most of the villain fights that they saw in the news happened outside. However, battles with smarter and more dastardly foes happened indoors, for they preferred to work in the shadows. There, out of plain sight from the heroes, they could construct their underground layers or do their backroom deals. So, for their first training exercise, they were to simulate a raid on these types of villains. The exercise would proceed as followed. Everyone would be split into teams of 2. At random, one team would be the villains who had secured a nuclear warhead. The other team were heroes, who were to invade the villain's warehouse and either capture both villains or make contact with the warhead in order to win. However, if the villain team caught the heroes or secured the payload until the time ran out, then they won. However, All Might warned them that all this time they would not be fighting robots, but instead, the living, thinking human beings. So they all had to be careful. Once everyone's questions about the test had been answered, All Might had the class draw lots to see which team they would be on. And much to Izuku's delight, he was paired up once more with Raphtalia. All Might, however, scratched his chin as he surveyed the pair.
They're together once more. Seeing how well they worked together during the entrance exam, I'm tempted to have one of them switch teams so that they learn to work with other students. However, I don't want to waste any more time. And I am interested to see how much further their teamwork has progressed.
As soon as the pro hero saw that all of his students had found their teammates, All Might had wasted no time in announcing the pairs for the first match. The first group of heroes would be Team A consisting of Izuku and Raphtalia, while the villains would be Bakugo and Ida. And as Bakugo and his teammate entered the building to get ready, the angry blonde shot a glare at Izuku before vanishing from sight. He really seems to have it out for you, doesn't he? And why does he call you Deku all the time? Izuku, who had just pulled out a map of the building's layout given to him by All Might, glanced up at Raphtalia before giving her a small smile. Don't mind him. Kacchan has just always been that way. He's a really good guy once you get to know him. And as for Deku, well, that's just a nickname he gave back to me when we were kids. Back when I thought I was quirkless. Still... Izuku shook his head before gesturing Raphtalia to come closer so that they could both look at the layout together. Let's just focus on the exercise for now. If I'm reading this right, then we could use the small hallways to our advantage. Meanwhile, with the villain team, Ida was examining the warhead while Bakugo paced the room with his usual sour expression.
They really go all out on these simulations. This bomb looks so realistic that, if I didn't know it was a fake, I would have mistaken it for the real thing. Just as one would expect of a school such as UA. Whatever. Just stay out of my damn way while I deal with that damned Deku and that extra. Wait! Shouldn't we?
Yet Ida's words fell on deaf ears as the explosively tempered blonde marched out of the room. His fists clenched tightly as he did so. Later, All Might's announcement, the exercise began. Not wasting any time, both Izuku and Raphtalia made their way into the front of the building, with Izuku taking the front, with the shield raised to his chest, ready for any danger that would befall them. Izuku carefully checked each hallway as the 2 hero hopefuls made their way to the stairwell. When they got to the second floor, Raphtalia's ears began to twitch while her hand went to grab the hilt of her sword. Izuku's ears picked up on the subtle noise, giving him a quick glance to his partner who nodded at him. Then suddenly, Bakugo came flying from a hallway directly in front of them, with his palm of his hand facing the pair. Who saw this, lifting his shield arm up and hitting the wrist of his childhood friend upward, just as the nitroglycerin sweat on Bakugo's palm ignited. Everyone's hair was flung backward and danced in the fiery winds created by the blast as Bakugo landed on the ground. Damn it! I knew you'd come for us sooner or later, Kacchan. Sitting around and waiting for your opponent just isn't your style. I also know that... Shut up! With amazing speed, Katsuki shot forward to deliver a right hook. Yet, as his palm came down, it collided with Izuku's shield, sending it upward and out of the way of the green-themed hero. But the counterattack wasn't over yet, as Raphtalia leaped over Izuku, landing in front of him before swinging her still-sheathed sword ring into Bakugo's now exposed gut. Spit flew out of Bakugo's mouth as he was sent flying backward from the force of the attack, but managed to land on his feet as he skidded to a halt. As I was saying, you like to start fights with a right hook. Damn you. You shitty nerd! Panting heavily, Bakugo began to look more like a feral beast. His red eyes locked onto Midoriya's green ones as several small explosions began appearing in the palms of his hands. The ashen blonde then thrust both his hands behind him, a huge explosion occurring just moments later that sent him rocketing towards Izuku, faster than his legs could ever propel him.
Chimera Viper Shield!
Instantly, Izuku's shield began to glow green as it took the form it had acquired when Izuku managed to acquire the shed snake skin from Uwabami. When the light faded, his shield had transformed into a mostly green-colored, four-pointed shield, with twin golden vipers on each side. Seeing the shield change, Bakugo used his explosions to send him upwards and over the caped hero in training, with his open palms facing the back of Izuku's head. Bakugo would have unleashed a powerful explosion had it not been for Raphtalia moving quickly to intercept him. The Tanuki girl grabbed his wrist right before the grenade-shaped gauntlet, only to have his other hand shoved in her face. Rather unleashing the explosion, he surprised them by planting his foot in her gut before launching himself away. However,
Airstrike Shield!
The green shield-like barrier took up the entire hallway, with Bakugo's back landing against it. The explosion quirk user's eyes widened in momentary surprise, just enough for Raphtalia to lunge forward, swinging her sword at his gut once more, with enough force that the airstrike shield shattered on impact. This in turn sent Bakugo rolling around on the ground until he finally stopped. Panting and wheezing from the pain, Bakugo managed to get up on all fours before pointing his palm at the pair.
Die!
A massive explosion followed, caused due to the large amount of sweat the teen was now producing. Quick to act, Izuku moved in front of his partner and raised his shield to block as much of the attack as possible. Flames licked at his cloak, which billowed in the wind, created in the explosion, yet the shield wielder never moved as he protected his teammate. Then, before the flames had a chance to subside, came Bakugo. His hand reached out, grabbing Izuku's wrist with a tightness that would match a demon's dragging a soul to the underworld. The hot-headed blonde then used his other weapon to create a series of explosions, spinning Izuku around until Bakugo flung him into Raphtalia. Bakugo watched as the pair collapsed in front of him, the blonde's sneer growing wider and more savage. But that smile didn't last long as Raphtalia quickly got to her feet, running towards her opponent with her sword drawn. Seeing this, Bakugo raised his palms up while unleashing a number of small explosions. However,
Hiding Shield!
Bakugo's eyes widened as the image of Raphtalia as she leapt towards him in the air changed into the airstrike shield, for a split second before becoming the Chimera Viper Shield. Now in front of him, the golden vipers on the shield came to life as they lunged forward and bit both his arms. The blonde could feel the weak venom being injected into his body as he cried out in pain, sweat now dripping from his brow as he stumbled backwards. Then, with shaky arms, Bakugo raised one of his arms while the other went to a pin on his grenade gauntlet.
Let's see how good your defense really is, Deku. These gauntlet on my arms just aren't for show. They were designed to collect my sweat and store them for even more powerful explosions.
Then, just as Bakugo pulled the pin out,
Shield Prison! Airstrike Shield!
a dome of shields surrounded Bakugo, chains wrapping all around to keep them all in place while, at the same time, a green energy shield appeared right in front of Izuku. A half a second later, the dome was shattered in an explosion that felt like it shook the building, while parts of the numerous shields that created the prison went flying in every direction. Some even collided with the airstrike shield, creating cracks within it before the flames hit. Izuku gritted his teeth as he held up his defense, his final barrier shattering a moment later. When the flames finally died down, Izuku lowered his shield and gasped at what he saw. Bakugo was on his knees, the ground, wall, and ceiling around him scorched, burn marks covering the boy's body, a few flames still burning away at his now tattered costume. Then, before either of the hero team could move, Bakugo fell face first onto the ground.
Katsuki Bakugo has been defeated. Medical drones will arrive soon to retrieve him and take him to Recovery Girl.
Raphtalia and Izuku nodded at All Might's words before letting out a sigh of relief as they approached the fallen blonde. Yet, rather than leaving Bakugo where he was, Izuku moved his childhood friend off to the side so that he was seated with his back against the wall, Not only that, but Izuku pulled one of his homemade healing potions where he promptly force-fed his foe in hopes that it would do some good. Once they were finished, the pair continued on their way, eventually finding Ida in a room few floors up. However,
"That blasted fool Bakugo! How dare he run off on his own! And what did it get him? Caught by those do-gooders? Well, I won't fall so easily! Nay, I shall show the world my villainy! Ha 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 ha!"
both Izuku and Raphtalia's sweat dropped at the sight of them as they peeked around the doorway, watching Ida as he acted and spoke like some corny Saturday morning cartoon villain. Is something wrong with him? I guess he's just taking this exam a little too seriously. Izuku, look at the floor. Izuku looked down, spotting that the floor was littered with debris. Most of it looks like small shards of wood. If the green-haired teen had to guess, Ida had destroyed some wooden crates and spread the remains around. No doubt in case someone tried to sneak past him. Well, there goes any chance of you sneaking in without noticing. Despite this, Izuku didn't sound too worried as he got up and simply walked into the room. This cut off Ida's laughing, immediately as the taller teen started staring down at the shield wielder.
Well, well, so you finally made it. But judging by your appearance, I'm willing to bet that my nefarious compatriot at least wore you down a little while I'm in a fresh as evil daisy. Tell me, where is your little friend?
As he spoke, Ida's helmet could be seen looking around at the floor, no doubt searching for any movement made by Raphtalia.
She's right behind you! Airstrike shield! What?
A confused Ida turned around, finding the green energy shield right in front of his face.
Second shield!
Another shield appeared behind Ida, pressing against his tightly so that he was sandwiched between the two barriers. As the armored racers tried his best to struggle, Raphtalia raced into the room and touched the bomb with a smile on her face.
No!
Sorry, but it looks like we win. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that we, the Celestials, have many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description down below. That's all for today's video, so goodbye and have a divine day.